Just a second. Twitter's having trouble going live here. There we go. Bitcoin pushed past $97,000, which we were looking at last week, all the way to $105,000 this past week. Altcoins are also going crazy. An altcoin that we talked about on our private Friday Rainmaker chats 2 weeks ago, that one of our members asked if it was a good deal, and we looked at the price with our Discord members, and they're like, oh, this is an amazing deal. Still very much believe in this one. Well, that one is up 100% since then. Many altcoins popping off, and some still waiting in the wings. We'll look at the markets today and some specific altcoins and see what is happening with Paul from Definity. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, if you, like me, came into crypto because you realize there's massive potential here for life-changing gains, but over a greater 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for discussion on becoming solid and unshakable and a savage crypto investor, much like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place. Now, I was once new to the crypto space 8 years ago, and I didn't know at that time that you grow a huge YouTube channel by talking about things that were already high and being so optimistic for why they'd go higher. And so I didn't realize for a full year into crypto that incentives were all wrong for most of the YouTube channels I was following. I was hungry for deeper analysis on crypto projects that were underpriced and undervalued. And I didn't find that. So in 2020, I created that. We discussed crypto as an investment and discussed the most important things like the 4-year investment cycle, projects, the pros and cons of those projects, the risks of those projects, the guesses. Whoa, my thing is going crazy here. It just deleted a scene. Hold on. All right. This is interesting. There we go. Wow. StreamYard just getting ahead of itself this morning. We discussed crypto as an investment, discussed the most important things like the investment cycles, specific projects, pros and cons of those projects, the risks of those projects, and the guesses, the upside if it comes together well. So if you're looking for deeper discussions, well, good place to be here. Also join our private Patreon group that allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord. This is where the best discussion and best info is. There are other benefits too. You'll have to join us to find many of those out. Do know I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul, who's joining us today, invests in many different markets, and none of this is to be taken as financial advice. All right, let's see. Boy, it mixed up everything here.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Just keeping you on your toes.
I know.
The market's been too easy, haven't they?
StreamYard had like an aneurysm.
Right.
All right. So now, Paul, Bitcoin blasted up. What else are you seeing in the markets? It looks like China and the U.S. signing a trade deal has alleviated some of the fears out there.
Yeah, I think we discussed all of that, didn't we? If you go back to when the tariffs were introduced and the underlying structure of the market was bullish. So, the read that we gave was that we didn't think that this was a top and that things should recover. And, even though I thought maybe there'd be a consolidation for a bit and then a market breakup, it was still possible that things would go up as quickly as they have done. And our core view that the markets would go higher hasn't changed. So overall, it's kind of doing what it should do. And now the question is it a bit overbought? Maybe. Could it go higher? Yes, of course. So we're in a structural bull market. We haven't seen the top. We haven't given any indication that all the signals that we're looking for have indicated a top. The dollar's still going down. Interestingly, CPI came out and it showed that it was a bit weaker than expected, which is exactly what one would have expected at this point. Lower interest rates, not quite on the cards. The market hasn't moved the needle. That hasn't moved the needle. So again, I was talked about this push-pull situation where the market goes down, then everyone fears that there's going to be, a bigger rout. So the Fed then cuts interest rates. And obviously we know about this big spat between Trump and Powell and the request for lower rates. The market's not really expecting lower rates into June, even though we've got slightly softer numbers. So what we're saying there is, with regard to the US, it seems a little stickier that as to whether they're going to lower rates or not. And I still think ultimately they will. I'm just trying to work out what might cause it. Will it be a market fall? Will it be weaker non-farm payrolls? Or will it be something else like an even weaker CPI number? And then it's like, okay, inflation is really going in the wrong direction. And they start to cut or decide to cut rates, or the data show, and Jerome Powell's got not an excuse, but what he would feel is a genuine reason other than Trump telling him that he's behind the curve and he needs to do it. So let's wait and see. But all of that is just basic market analysis and macro analysis of what could happen. With regard to the charts, things have continued to look bullish. And what's really interesting about the position that we're in right now is that it seems as though other things are moving as well. So the altcoins, I think, as we're seeing with Ethereum, that seems to have a bit of a jump. That's jumped up really very nicely, and we didn't lose faith in that. In fact, I think it was even last week that I was saying it was a buy because it looked like that it had done enough in the short term for a breakout, and it formed quite a nice little pattern there. So a few things moving in the right direction. And I think in many ways, it's been a difficult time, hasn't it? Because altcoins are where most of the risk is, and those haven't had the big blowouts, big breakouts that Bitcoin's had, and so there's some catching up to do. So it's good to see that there is some signs that is happening, but that could also be what is the final phase of the bull market too, where all these go up, everyone then starts to go crazy, and that informs the top. But we'll cross those bridges when we come to them, as we've said a few times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the altcoins usually run later. So I'm excited seeing what Bitcoin is doing and having it run. Now, there's an interesting lesson for those that are learning to become like savage investors. Notice like the last month, a month ago, everyone was talking negative on Ethereum, like it wasn't going to survive, it's not relevant, blah, blah, blah. And yet look what's happened with it. So Ethereum is a major player. It's the number 2 market cap out there. Are there some competitors? Yes. Is it possibly not going to make it 20 years from now? Possibly. It has so much infrastructure on it, so much building. And it's most likely what a lot of corporations adopt if they're going to hold something other than Bitcoin. ETH is one of those somethings that they're going to hold. Maybe XRP, ETH. Some may hold Solana, but ETH has been around longer and seen as much more stable. So of course it was going to do well. Yet most people were thinking it wasn't going to. And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that was like ETH has been counted out, but it's not. And you'll see it turn around at some point, and it's turned around really hard. Now, do I hold ETH? No, it's not risky enough. I want the things that can go 50 to 100x. ETH is not going to go 50 to 100x from here. So not my kind of play, but for some people, it is their kind of play. And if they were listening to everybody else who was like, oh, ETH is down, and they just have this recency bias. ETH price had done terrible for the last forever, so they just felt like it would continue to do terrible for forever. And that's not how things play out. Now, you watch tons of markets. Why don't you share with us some of the things that you're seeing in some of the different markets you're watching? Let me see if I can get this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you caught me trying to find the first pick, which is IMJ, and I can't find it. So perhaps we'll look at that afterwards. So
okay. Did I spell it wrong? I did spell it wrong. It's INJ.
Oh, NJ. Okay.
Yeah. No wonder you weren't finding it.
Okay, so we'll come back to that. So that's a little taste of what's going to come. I suppose you've got it on the headlines, but so look, here we are. We've got the tariff sell-off, and I see we've already got a question about the tariffs. The markets, the most important thing is what the markets are doing, and the markets are forward-looking, so you can bounce it off course. But if it wants to go in a direction, it will be forward-looking. And whereas there might be some data that gets adjusted in the future, but I think the whole point of all of this is that whether it was not naivety, but whether it was an over aggressive move in order to get a different sort of deal. Trump is known for his aggression. He tends to fight like that. But then I always think as a businessman, he will do the right thing and reduce, negotiate, and then things will start to work the way they should. However you look at it, it did create quite a lot of uncertainty. The market does not like uncertainty. But perhaps there is now a pattern emerging in terms of we're seeing that this is how he might negotiate on big deals. He'll just go in very heavy and then wind it back. Anything you wind back on, you can't do that twice. Like once you've wound back, people will know that that's what you're going to do. So I think it was the right thing to do because I think structurally, as I mentioned, when it first came out, Elon Musk having his ear and running a car company, I can't imagine what it must be like to run any company that's got orders from overseas or anything that you need to bring from overseas into this country or into America, I should say, because it just messes up your supply line. It creates so much uncertainty. Interest rates have to go down. They've gone down in the UK. They're probably going to go down in lots of other central bank in lots of countries as a central bank response. In the US, it could be what it does. So the market's more interested not in the tariffs, but in the global response to it. And that is just to open the spigots and put more money in the system. Where's it flowed to? It was already flowing into gold. It's flowed into Bitcoin. It's flowing back into the stock market. So it all looks like a not so much a non-event, but the market will almost treat it like a non-event. And all the non-events that have happened since October 2023, if you go back and Silicon Valley Bank, the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, all those things, all the things at the time that seemed really terrible. There was a few others. I can't remember them now, but they seemed so big at the time. And then later on, 6 months later, people weren't even talking about it. And I wonder whether this is exactly what's going to happen here. So the stock market's still going up. S&P heading back up to all-time highs or on its way. Russell 2000 is struggling a little bit more because it's the smaller cap stocks, but that's moving up. And European stocks have either broken into all-time highs. This is the German stock market. So it can't be that bad, can it? UK stock market, not quite breaking into all-time highs, but it's on its way. Everything seems to be recovering and recovering fast. China, lo and behold, breaking up. Remember, we said this was the low point where many people decided that that this was going to be deflation. It was going to continue down, but it's turning around. It's going higher. Hong Kong market is the same. What I'm seeing is a general flow of bullish charts. Apart from gold, gold long term, but short term, we discussed that it probably hit its top and needs to correct. And that's what it's doing here. Silver, maybe it will outperform on the spreads, but it's not broken out either. So I think that might be disappointing a few traders, but there's still potential for that to go higher. And there's definitely potential for gold to go higher. I just think it needs a bit of a breather. Copper, that's recovered well, but it's holding in. There's a little bit of uncertainty about the outlook, and copper being a barometer for economic activity, it would make sense if it just kind of stayed in this range for a bit. But I would like to switch from a weekly, actually I might even switch to a monthly chart. If we switch to a monthly chart, this still looks very, very bullish. I know when we zoom in, it looks like more of a range, but this is what I'm focusing on, this big picture. So at some stage, this will break into new highs, and then we'll be in the phase of it will feel very inflationary, and then the Fed will have to start raising rates, and that's when things will start to turn down. But that will be kind of later on down the curve. Of course, we can't move on without looking at the dollar, which had a little bit of a bounce. And I think maybe we did say that it could maybe come back and kiss this 100 level before it goes again, which is kind of what it's done, but the trend is still lower. There was obviously the India-Pakistan situation, which I don't think is what drove the market or people into the dollar. It seemed to be a coincidental. The trend had moved very nicely from 108 all the way down to 98. Come on, that's 10 big figures. So you've got to give it room for a rebound. And then that news came along wasn't great, but it wasn't really going to develop into anything. And so perhaps a short-term encouragement for people to buy dollars, which is what you want, actually. You don't want everyone going short, because before, I think people moved to the other side of the boat with dollars, saying, because of the tariff situation, sell everything American and blah, blah, blah. And it just got a little bit overdone. So a counter trend move will possibly take some of those trades out and then move to a more neutral position, and then that'll move down. But just for those of you who may not realize the implications of a weaker dollar, it is effectively a rate cut. It is bullish for global markets. The more it goes down, the better it is for US stocks, because they're exporting most of the time. Not so great for inflation, of course. And I think this is where people might be leaning on Trump a little bit. So we'll see how that pans out. But over the remember, inflation data is backward looking, and it's been pretty much range bound. And so I don't think a lot will change. And it also depends on how you measure it as well. There's a lot of things that aren't really measured in the way that you'd expect. Now, it's funny, I was having a conversation with someone in the UK just the other day about how public sector pay, people like civil servants, etc., their pensions and their pay is linked to the CPI, the consumer price index. So if you think about it, there is this huge incentive to keep that number low, so they don't have to pay them more money. And so whether real inflation is much higher is a completely different conversation. So, what's happening with what CPI is and how the market reacts to it and how the Fed reacts to it is very different to what's really happening in the real world. So there may actually be quite a lot of inflation out there. It's just it's not being it's not actually being recorded correctly. But that's a double whammy, because if inflation is high in the real world, people will invest in assets that rise fast and in an inflationary environment. And that is stocks, that is anything that protects your weakening dollar, which would be Bitcoin, and it'd be property as well. So when we look at all these crazy, inverted commas, crazy numbers for gold and Bitcoin and all of that, if your money's actually really losing, between 8 and 10% a year, and I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying that it could be because of inflation, then it makes sense to invest somewhere else out of fiat into something that protects it. So in many ways, what the market is doing is logical, even though it might seem like these prices are too high. So overall, trends are still in place. We may need a bit of a consolidation. I'm just sort of mindful that we've had some good runs and markets had a very emotional, volatile period in the short term. And after that, you can get, or you should get, a kind of boring period for a bit where everyone takes a bit of a break from both sides. Bulls and bears have been battered, given what's happened. And I think both of them might want to take a break for a bit. But overall, the main themes are still there. And, if things do accelerate higher in Bitcoin, that's fine. That's exactly kind of what our core view is. And it does look like the dominance between Bitcoin and some of the altcoins seems to be breaking down, certainly with ETH. And that is, I think, a really interesting thing that started from last week.
Yeah, that was big to have ETH climbing so much, especially because market cap is so high. It does tend to put pressure on Bitcoin's dominance, which had been climbing really steadily. And what often happens is Bitcoin's still going to continue to climb in price. But when altcoins really pop off, you'll see Bitcoin's dominance start to fall. And then Bitcoin at some point peaks out, and the alts usually continue to run for a while. And that's when Bitcoin's dominance falls off a cliff. And it's gone through that cycle in 2017, 2021, and probably sometime in 2025. Now, good question here from Purple Llama I want to bring up. What do you think about what he's asking here? Do you think crypto will do well this summer? The professionals say the tariffs won't show up till the May, July CPI reports, which will spook TradFi. Think this will move people to Bitcoin?
Yeah, I was kind of answering it as we were talking through the markets, but I don't think it will. I think the story is pretty much over. I think it's over. I think the markets have. It's kind of like there's not new news. This is how the market works. Is there something that it didn't know before? Yes, it didn't know that Trump was going to do all of this with Trump. We all knew the tariffs were coming in. The only surprise was how aggressively he brought them in.
Yeah.
And the amounts, and then the whole kind of poker game. You put 100%, I'll put 150. No, I'll put 200. I mean, that was crazy. So that was why the markets melted down, because they were like, what on earth is going on? And then it was almost like it was so bad that the markets just go, hang on a minute, this isn't going to last. They're not going to let him do this. They are going to lean on him until he changes his mind, and for good reason. And then that's why everything bounced, because the core structure, the macro structure of the market is still okay. And so they used it as a buying opportunity, a fantastic buying opportunity, which obviously didn't feel like it. I mean, I'm not saying it was easy. I'm just saying, I mean, it felt awful, didn't it? But the structure of the market was bullish. So what might, I mean, it might make the market pause a little bit, but I just think it's now a story that we're moving more away from, because the longer you leave it, it's like when there's a problem that the market needs to solve, or businesses need to solve, they solve it. They work around it, they find ways to deal with it. And as time goes on, they are having more and more time to deal with it. So in the short term, you can't deal with it, right? You're out late night, you can't find your keys for your car. What are you going to do? That's the maximum point of the problem. Later on, you find solutions. You call someone up, you get someone in, you sort the problem out. So the longer the problem lasts, the more you have time to anticipate it. And I think there'll be less surprise in what's coming down the pike, just because we have a bit more knowledge of what the rates will be, and they've come down a bit, and they're moving in the right direction as opposed to moving in the opposite direction. And I think that's a big factor, that they're not moving higher, they're moving lower, or there's deals being done. So I think overall, if anything, it will go sideways. Central banks, as I say, in the UK have cut rates. Maybe they didn't need to, and that will be something we'll see further down the road. But it's all very good for asset prices.
Yeah, completely agreed. All right. So any other altcoins you want to look at before we start getting into the picks? Anything that's hit your radar this week that you were looking before we jump into those?
Yeah, I guess just, let's just have a quick look at the bond markets. Here we go. Yeah, 3-month money's actually not really moved down very much. In fact, it's moved up a little bit. And 2 years has moved up. Yeah. So interestingly, longer term rates are moving a bit higher. Isn't that interesting? So that would suggest that rates are going up. And if rates are starting to go up, is that because the stock market's gone back up? That's a key thing. But in terms of we'd be looking for, I mean, look, I say move up, it's not moved up that much, it's still pretty much in a range, so that could easily come back down again. It's just, was there a big move on the CPI number? Not really. The other big thing to look for or look at was, as we were looking at, was ETH pretty much. That's a sharp move up, but to be fair, it was really underperforming. I mean, that rubber band was stretched quite hard, and very strangely, really, because why was it being pressured down so much? You'd expect a consolidation, but it was just forced much lower, and that was unexpected. I would have thought a consolidation, but these things happen. I mean, it's happened with gold and silver. I mean, gold's like gone to the moon, and silver is still playing in a range. It's still way off its all-time high. So markets do this, but it's looking for the signs that are saying that things are shifting back. Now, ETH is moving up, not when Bitcoin is moving down. So it's like Bitcoin's holding up here, ETH is catching up. This is, I think, a good sign. I think it's showing good structural support now. And I hope that this will, I mean, hope's a word I don't really like to use, because I like it to be based on what I'm seeing, but I think it might filter back into some of the altcoins. I suspect it will, and I'll be looking for signs that it is.
Yeah, we had a massive run in ETH. That's been fun to see. I'm really curious because I don't know. It's how high ETH is going to go this cycle, and like it's up at 2,500. Does it do a 4x from here? Does it do something like an 8x? I'm really looking forward to seeing how the cycle plays out for ETH. Now I only hold ETH small amounts for like transactions and other things, but like not a major holding. So it'll be fun to see how big some of these altcoins can go. Most of my stuff is in the riskier stuff, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes. Speaking of the riskier stuff, we're going to get into some of the altcoin picks. So we have on the schedule to look at INJ instead of IMJ, IMX, PEPE, which we don't often look at meme coins, but some interesting price action. And since we have Paul here, we'll look at PEPE, and we'll look at AAVE as well, which is an indicator, one of the major players in the DeFi narrative, which I have my eyes on very closely. So let's kick it off with a little bit of INJ.
Yeah, just before we do that, I just wanted to just say very quickly. Last week, hi Chris, just to talk about my messy charts. I haven't cleared them up, but interestingly, see, sometimes I leave these lines on, and I wouldn't have really thought at this point here when I was drawing that resistance line that it would have any effect at all. But resistance and support lines sometimes come into play, so you can see why I kind of just leave them. I mean, as long as I kind of look past them anyway and look at the bigger picture, but occasionally something will just sit there and be useful for it. But I think that's just me trying to make an excuse for not tidying my charts up. So, but anyway, INJ, yeah. Oh my goodness me, right. So we should have seen this. Maybe we did, and I've forgotten. But that is a classic inverse head and shoulders pattern. Did we look at this before? It was this one that we did look at before.
Yeah, when it was heading down.
Okay, but did we look at this reversal pattern here?
No, not enough of it had played out. We weren't far enough in.
But did I talk about it potentially playing out?
Maybe.
Okay. I just wondered because there's a few that have made these patterns, made these reversals, and one or two, and I can't remember which coins they were now, but one or two, it was like we were in this right shoulder, it was coming back down, making the reversal pattern. Look, the trade was here, and I'm not saying that just because it's already gone. I'm saying it because as you know, I look for the signs that the market is making a base, and we had the downward trend. We had to wait for evidence. I think we would have been very interested around this level here, which is probably why I've got that line in around $8 because that's prior support. Wouldn't have liked to have seen it go much below that, and it did go below, but then came back quite quickly. But this inverse head and shoulders changed the game. So it broke the trend line, made a base, and it's now going up. And it's actually stopped at where the first major resistance point, which was this support area at $13.80. It's pausing at this point, which is what one would expect. But, you know, I think this trend is turning down, turning around, I should say. And if it does pull back, we've got a very solid 11.12 support area to protect any retracements, which there's likely to be. But we can now draw an upward trend line, so we can pop that in and say that the outlook from a technical point of view is looking bullish and moving averages are turning around. It might even squeeze higher. This little pattern here is normally indicative of a short-term pause before another sharp move, but that's very, very short term. I'm not saying that it will definitely do that. I'm just saying sometimes when it does that, it's a good sign that it's going to run, but that's usually when everything's running. But having said that, is everything starting to run a little bit? I wonder, because it's so many things have moved fast, and maybe the market's looking around for the next opportunities. So there could be upside surprises, which would be very nice. But yeah, so from my point of view, from a technical point of view, I'd like to have got into this or seen this pattern early. So I am definitely jumping on it late. With the caveat that there could be a pullback, over the next few weeks, given the trend rate and given that it's hit some key resistance, but basically it's in the buy camp for me. So yeah, it's turning around.
Yeah. This is a fun one because I like to help people understand, like, when I was new in crypto in 2017, I just thought everyone was going to get rich through this. And later, as I saw how it did play out, I realized that like so many things were wrong. First of all, coverage on YouTube is interesting because if your goal is to grow a big channel, and if you grow a big channel, you can get lots of sponsorship opportunities and get paid really well from the sponsorships. You have to cover things that are hot. And what does hot mean? It's things that have gone up that everybody is talking about. But by the time everyone is talking about it, it's too late. And let me share with people what I mean by this. So this is injective on a bigger time frame, right? So here was back how it did in 2021. But in early 2024, it went absolutely crazy. And this was when all the channels were covering injective and how it was breakthrough technology. And it was so amazing. Now, let me ask you, the audience, is this a good time to buy? No. Yet this is when all the major YouTube channels were covering it. Why? Because that's what people were searching for, and the algorithm will reward them for covering what everyone is searching for. And if you're optimistic on it, because most people coming in, they see this kind of track record and they think, oh, it's just going to keep going up for forever. And here you see it doesn't keep going up for forever. So it pulled back nicely into juicy territory. And this is when nobody was covering it. But it was brought up on this show and sometime in here, and I was like, look, oh my gosh, it's getting down to these bear market prices. And these bear market prices were very, very good. Oh my gosh, this is good. Now, it's still outside the market cap range of what I was looking for, but it hit $600 million market cap, which for injective was an amazing price. So it was about almost $7 for injective. And this recent trade war fears brought a lot of things down to prices that hadn't been seen for a year to a year and a half. And injective was one of those that came back down to those prices. And it was an amazing price. Now, is it a bad price? It's not an amazing price. It's just a good price. It is a good price. And like Paul said, like the pattern, the inverse head and shoulders started to play out earlier. And so there's still some money left on this trade, but not as much as there was. And I tend to buy things and hold them till crypto goes crazy. So when I buy, I'm not buying for a month from now. I'm not buying for 2 months from now. I'm just trying to buy at prices that I think are really, really good and just hold on till that narrative really, really goes crazy. Now, had I been holding injective when it went up here, one of my signals to sell would be that everybody was talking about it. And I would have rolled it into some of the projects that I really, really like that were solidly out of the narrative. And I did that with several projects. But injective isn't one I was holding. So I didn't do that with injective because I wasn't holding any. But there were ones that I absolutely did that with. In fact, one of the big ones that totally ran away, everybody was talking about it. My sign was that everyone was talking about it. And that was, I hadn't planned to talk about it. Where is it? IXS was one that I did some of that with. Iagon, I did some of that with as it was going crazy. And AOS. So AOS is, and I believe in these projects a lot. I love them. They were just going through this type of period. And so it was a good time to take profits, roll it into things that were massively, massively punished. And that's how I play it. I don't sell what's low to buy what's up. I literally sell what's up to buy what's low. I do the opposite. And I found that works really, really well for me. All right, would I rate this as a buy? For people looking for larger caps and they're willing to hold until the market really blows off, I would rate this as a buy still. I liked it as a better price when we covered it before, but it's still at a decent price. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Where is it? My things are
IMX.
All backwards. There we go.
Yeah. So immutable X, downward trend, and very similar pattern. We're seeing inverse head and shoulders, break, except that this is, sorry, I'm not sure if that was on screen, but downward trend, accelerated trend rate. We've hit a low very close to the prior low. That would not have been a good sign for me, breaking into a new low, but it recovered quickly. So a trade I would have, if I was trading this, I would have traded it short as it broke that low, but it then came back very quickly, so that I would have cut it, so in and out. But then we got this base and the inverse head and shoulders here, which is similar to the other pattern. Very nice neckline. This is the breakout point, and it's come back to retest it as well. Now it's moving higher. Now I can understand why there's some reticence to jump on it, because it's been a difficult market and it's been in this strong downward trend, but it has made a base, and I would say I'll give it a little bit of room, because these things are volatile, and when you're trading or when you're analyzing a market that has got a lot of people involved with it, a lot of volume, then it's harder to push it around with a few orders. But obviously what we're looking at can be pushed around much more, so you've got to give it a bit more leeway and treat it with a bit more caution. That of course applies to everything, but I'm sure everybody watching this knows that. But if we look at where it could come back to in terms of a natural pullback against what might be a deal breaker, I think a deal breaker would be anything that kind of breaks below, like, this 50 cents area. But that'd be quite far in a normal reversal to allow it to go there. But this is the phase that we're in, and these are the markets that we're in. But overall, I think this looks bullish, and I think this is it's set to squeeze higher. And if it doesn't, then it will probably extend a base rather than turn down. But I'd be looking for it to hit this 0.90 area, maybe consolidate there, and then push up again. So that is the big line, as we've drawn there. Needs to really take that out for us to be talking about major moves. But time and price, they're moving together. The line's getting lower and this is getting higher, which is what you want. So that opportunity is potentially approaching. But for a shorter term trade, this is an interesting setup that for me looks technically like it's going to go higher.
Yeah, I like this one too. And I like good prices, and I feel like this is a good price. Now, how much of this am I holding? Not much. In fact, very little of it. Now, I was holding it. This is the kind of price that had I had liquidity freed up, I would have bought it, because this is where I bought it before, was back here when it was at this price. And though its market cap is much higher than I usually touch, basically it's a layer 1 blockchain, or kind of like an ETH layer 2 scaling solution, but specifically built for blockchain gaming, which the narrative I think does incredibly well this bull run, and IMX is very well positioned to take advantage of that. In fact, as blockchain gaming took off here, October 2023, and went crazy, IMX went from the amazing buy price I was trying to tell my audience that it was at 51 cents. Essentially, it hit below 50 cents, even though it doesn't reflect it here. And I'm just like, that's too good to pass up. And then it went all the way to 350, which is when everyone was talking about it. This is when it's getting covered, and you have the major channels saying, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Almost like Jim Cramer. And it's not like they're bad. They're just trying to grow their channel. That's what their incentives are aligned to do. And so for them, channel growth is really, really important. So they have to cover what's been pumping, because that's what everyone's searching for. And it will lead you right to the slaughterhouse as an investor if you don't understand that. And then it's pulled back to an amazing price again. In fact, it hit down here, such an amazing price. And so I called IMX a great buy. It's now up some. I think it's still at a really, really good buy. Now, the question you want to ask yourself, is this a market cap you're comfortable with? Because where can it go? Maybe 15, maybe 20x, maybe 30 or 40 or 50x from here, maybe. that's possibly the range that it would go in a greater bull market. I think blockchain gaming is a huge narrative, and Mutual X is really well positioned to take advantage of that. It's a more stable play than some of the riskier stuff that I'm in, as reflected by its market cap already being higher. It's higher because it's got already a lot of holders, a lot of people who have eyes on it. Though, because blockchain gaming is out of the narrative, the price has been punished and punished and punished. And then the trade war stuff, and it got down to these lows of the bear market, which was so incredible that I think the bigger bull run is coming not very far away. And right before that, this trade war stuff had prices come all the way back down to bear market lows for some projects. And so another chance to scoop up, yet being so close to when I think the market goes absolutely crazy. It's amazing. And it's still at a good price. I'd rate it a buy. Am I holding it? No, I'm in riskier stuff. That market cap is higher. I did last time it was near these prices. I did buy some here, and as it went crazy, I took profits, rolled it into some things that were much, much, much lower. And even though I believe in Immutable X long term, it was like up 4 or 5x what I bought it from, and the other stuff was down even cheaper. So it just made sense to rebalance into those. All right, let's take a look at our next one, which is PEPE. All right, PEPE, let's see what you got.
Yeah, let's get PEPE up. So let's have a look. PEPE US dollar. Okay, so again, we're seeing basing patterns. Now, would there be more data somewhere else, or is this about reasonable for how much it's, or for the time frame that's been trading?
Sorry, I was reading Roman's comment. Say that again.
I was sorry. I was just saying, is this this reasonable in terms of the time frame for it's been trading, or have we got a bit more data? My guess is it isn't. This is just
yeah, it's been out there longer than it's been on Coinbase, but maybe it's not a really old coin, but it really hits some. You might be able. Yeah, it might have a better history. That top one.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
yeah.
That's more like it. I thought it had a bit more. Yeah. Okay. That's even more. Well, I mean, look, here we go. Back to 23. So we got, it makes a kind of consolidation, sharp move up, consolidation, sharp move up. Maybe this is a new consolidation, bigger consolidation, but this pattern again it's this inverse head and shoulders pattern. It's or at least a double bottom. 1, 2, okay, failed there, but came back, higher lows, all pushing higher. It's retouched this resistance point, which was the first sell point on the way down. So double top, break down, and it's come back up to touch it. So we're at a pivotal point, very, very important point. Again, the main move has already happened, but it's a question of whether it will continue higher. The overall pressure is to the upside. I know we don't really like to look at these things because there's nothing underlying them. But as a technician, I don't really mind looking at anything as long as the chart looks good. And the chart looks bullish. It looks like it will go higher. So for me, it would be on the buy list, but I don't know how else you would justify it other than, you know, people wanting to put money in it. And it ends up a bit like the Tulip Mania with things like this, that, you know, people buy it because other people are buying it. And in the end, I think these will be the ones that we'll be looking for the first breakdown in trends, unless they have some type of utility value. But the chart is looking okay. Where I would bail out is below all those zeros. I'm not going to count them. 96.17. You know, once that breaks, that's out. I mean, it could test it, maybe go slightly below, but you have to have a stop point, or, you know, that's how I look at it. I need a parachute out when things go wrong.
Yeah. Meme coins are interesting, and I'll share a little bit about meme coins. The reason I don't hold them is because their predictability is just lower. Some people are like, oh, yeah, you can totally tell. Okay, a couple things. Number one, the games are made in the early days. Let me share PEPE's chart. When they are super risky, and they're far more risky than you can imagine. So the people who bought back here made an incredible ton, and since then it's stabilized. But if you're going to buy that early on meme coins, realize that 1 in 1,000 of the meme coins have that kind of move, like literally 1 in 1,000. And so then you could have bought it and made some good money here, though the numbers on it are so small, it's hard to see. So PEPE has now made it mainstream. Like it's kind of like rocket ships spend 95% of their fuel getting the first couple miles out of Earth's orbit. And once they do, it's like, okay, they've kind of made it. Like, so PEPE is kind of made it as a meme coin for a long term, which means most of the gains are in. And how much upside does it have from here? Some, because when some people come into crypto, they don't know anything about crypto. They can't really wrap their mind around the substance behind it. So they just latch onto some meme coins at first. And they're like, yeah, I don't know anything about crypto, but I hold PEPE. It's like, okay, or I hold Doge, or yeah, I bought some Shiba Inu. Okay. Wow, that was the first thing you bought? Okay. And that's often because there's no fundamentals to understand. It's just easier for them to buy because it seemed fun and they don't really understand what crypto is anyway. But a little bit later in the bull run, people start going into research mode to understand what crypto is all about, and they start looking for substance. And that's when a lot of the altcoins that I'm interested in do well. So PEPE often, and the bigger meme coins tend to run when Bitcoin is doing well. And so Bitcoin is doing well, and wouldn't you know, PEPE is doing well. Like how well, it's hard to see. It looks like the price has doubled since about here, almost doubled since about there. Cool. Do I hold PEPE? Never. I'm not going to try to get the one out of 1,000 meme coins in the early days that's going to survive. It's not worth the risk. And then once it has survived and already thrived, much of the gains are in. So I still just go for substance. And substance, like looking and analyzing the underlying company, the team, and what it is that the project does, will that bring tangible benefits? It just has higher predictability. And so, like, the reason I don't go play at the casino was actually somewhat predictable. If you're playing roulette, you know what your chances are. They're stacked against you, but you know what your chances are. So what if in crypto you could do research in companies, the team behind it, and you can take odds where the odds are stacked in your favor. And if you're right, you win a whole lot more than you would lose. And those are the kind of bets I specifically look for. And meme coins don't fit in that. The risks, your chance of winning are so much lower. And once it has made it out of Earth's orbit, most of the gains have been made. What can it do from here? 5x, 6x, 8x, 10x. Cool. I'm mostly in stuff that'll do possibly 30x, 50x, 100x. If I'm lucky, 200x or more from where I'm holding it. And those are my plays that I'm in. So PEPE, would I buy it here? No. In fact, it just isn't my thing. So I'd either put it as a wait or a sell. And, some people want to hold it for fun, and that's fun for them. And that's cool. My personality is more on the analytical side. It's like fun for me is making money. And making money for me is more about playing the better odds. Because over time, the person playing the better odds is going to make way more than those just kind of throwing money around because it's fun. And for me, making huge amounts of money leads to me being able to take more vacations, buy more of the things I want to have. And for me, that's fun. All right, let's look at our next one, which is AAVE, which AAVE is one of the lead players in the DeFi narrative. So let's see how AAVE is doing. We don't have your audio, Paul.
Go. Sorry, I was crunching some ice, and I thought I don't want to put that on on the show, so I muted it. So my apologies. So yeah, it's actually hot in the UK for a change. It's really we're just coming to terms with it. So yeah, the chart of AAVE, it's looking really interesting here because what we've had is this basing pattern, or look at the way this has just been turning around. Even on this pullback, there's still higher lows. And in the short term, I say short term, this doesn't feel very, very much like short term. It feels like very much the long term, the way it's been going down. But this is why it's important to look at the big picture, because you can see that this is building into something perhaps even bigger. So in this phase, I think if it can get back up to these levels, this is where, the potential for it to break out starts to increase. I mean, I know that kind of goes without saying, but the overall structure of the chart points towards that happening. Now, that doesn't guarantee it's going to happen, but good pullback, interesting rebound. It's rebounding when, you get the sense that a lot of people have just gone, this is too volatile, I don't want to trade anymore, or they're taking a break. I mean, we even got, you see the sort of comments, and you see the number of people who want to look at stuff and talk about crypto, and it's obviously gone down because of the recent volatility. And that's what makes it more interesting now, that the charts are showing that there's more bullish signs. So the sentiment is very key, even though it's slowly recovering. But again, this little short-term inverse head and shoulders pattern is broken out from this 180 resistance point. It should be targeting this 400, I guess. That would be the first major target. And as far as I can see from a structural point of view, it's looking bullish technically. So I think I'd prefer to go with that direction because that seems to be the dominant direction. So for me, it's looking bullish.
As bullish, you mean a buy?
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a look at it. So the market cap on AAVE is quite high, 3.42 big. Now, for those putting big money in crypto, like big money, like institution stuff, they're only going to buy bigger projects like AAVE. And AAVE might be too small. So they're looking for the bigger market cap projects because they don't want to take the risky positions. And if during the bull run they only make 5x, they're very happy with that 5x. So AAVE is a good play for them. But at one point, AAVE was a really risky project. This whole idea of DeFi was brand new, and it wasn't even called DeFi back then. And AAVE was once called ETHland. And I remember a few channels talking about ETHland, but I didn't really understand what it was. And then, see, it doesn't even show the complete history here, because in 2020, DeFi actually was born. It was the summer of 2020, and ETHland went from pennies to, well, you see here, by February of 2021, gone to $461. So you're talking about thousands of X's of return. And that's what's possible with some early stage projects, if it's something innovative that really creates real value for not just the crypto space, but the crypto space in the broader world. And AAVE has done that, but a lot of the gains are already in. So that's why I'm not holding projects like AAVE. That market cap's really high. Now, at a certain point, maybe I have a portfolio that's like quite large, and I'm okay with 5x or 10x or 20x during the greater bull run. I'm still swinging for the fences on the riskier projects to grow to much bigger numbers. And so AAVE isn't something that I hold, but I like it, and I frequently check it to see what might happen with DeFi. Now, is it a good buy here? I don't know if it's turning around yet. If DeFi is coming into narrative, it definitely is doing a lot better than here. It's almost doubled, which is quite good since here. So I'm just keeping an eye on AAVE, what's going on with DeFi, because things like Definity, which I do hold a lot of, company which Paul worked for, I hold a lot of their token. Why? Because I believe in it, and solidly in the DeFi / central finance merging narrative. And I like those kind of projects with much smaller market caps, so that when DeFi goes crazy, perhaps some of my riskier bets go crazy and have much higher gains. So I do like to keep an eye on AAVE. Is it a buy for me? No, at this point, it would just be a wait. Like, even if I was holding blue chips, I would have bought it when it was going down like this. Sub 200, I would have bought it, especially in this 150, 160, 170 price range. Well, way back at 227, I'm just like, I'd wait for a better deal, and maybe it doesn't come back there. That's okay. I'd just say I missed it or maybe it will come back down and retest that. But for me, even if I was holding blue chips, I wouldn't. I figure, shoot, I wish I had noticed this a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I would have bought it. All right, so we got a suggestion, like this suggestion, because PM, I like the project that you asked us to take a look at. Thanks for the alpha, guys. As always, Rain, could you take a look at COPI, please? It looks like it's bottomed out and offers a good return, even just to its recent all-time high. Can it reach a $1 billion market cap? All right, so COPI, and let's see.
Right. I mean, I'm not going to answer as to whether it will reach 1 billion. I think that's for you and the fundamentals. But on the technical side, it has definitely shown signs of a base, and the April turnaround, which is what it wasn't clear in April that it was turning around. It does look like that with hindsight, but that's why, from a technical point of view, I need to see higher lows and higher highs, and that's what we got first of all here, but then it retraced, but now it's broken again. So we have got something that can establish an upward trend and allow me to buy. So with the downward trend breaking from here, it was very vicious, but it was also very consistent, and that was the first step of it moving away from that trend rate and moving into more of a consolidation. It's also broken back above some important support, which was holding it, and obviously many sales throwing in the towels. That's what all this was about. So it's currently sitting near there. So structurally, I think it does look interesting. It does look like this is turning, or has turned enough for it building a base for that to be extended. Definitely seeing a change in market dynamics. So for me, it would be a buy, and I would put in a upward trend line from here, and I use that as my stop. Now, again, it's still a long way away from, there will be a lot of longs here who are perhaps looking to exit at zero, or, make a small profit, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of work to do, a lot of wood to chop, as they say, especially this area here at 2.2 cents. Big support level, buying. We know that happened. It got broken. Big battle around here. So I'm pretty sure that this area here is going to be volatile or hard to break through. But looking at the longer picture, the bigger picture, at least it's moving in the right direction, and there is some element of risk reward that could point to it moving higher. So for me, again, it looks like a buy, because the trend has turned. Yeah, that's all I can say at this stage with this line as my stop.
Yes, I love cornucopias at this price. I'm really glad he brought this up, because I like what I consider really cheap prices, and this is what I consider a really cheap price. Now, I own a bunch of cornucopias token. I own a whole ton of their land. One of the things that made me a ton of money in the 2019, 2020 bear market was some land I bought in Axie Infinity. When the blockchain gaming narrative hit, that land went up massively, massively. So I own a lot of cornucopias of land. Their token at this price is way too cheap, in my opinion, which is a good thing. I like too cheap. One of the principles of making massive money in crypto and any investment is buy low, sell high. And look at this. It's fallen off a cliff from 12 cents all the way down almost 90% from there. In fact, it recently touched down at this price, which I was talking with my private audience. I'm like, oh, really good price. But it's an incredible price still, even at this. And it's touched back to pretty much bear market lows. You don't often get that. So remember, blockchain gaming went absolutely crazy. Cornucopias hit a little bit later than things. I remember covering it here. I was like, Cornucopias hasn't really caught on with the blockchain gaming narrative. It is solidly in it. It's probably going to go crazy. And yet it did. Boom. And then it's just pulled back since then, which is perfect. Really good re-entry point back here. So cornucopias, amazing price. I like the teams. I think the game they're developing looks amazing. I think they're far ahead of many of their competitors for an actual playable MMORPG, which I think is going to be one of the first metaverses, really, because some projects have gone the way of let's create a metaverse, and they have, and you get in there and it's boring and there's nothing to do. I think a better way to do that is create a game with a good gameplay loop that has metaverse components to it. And that will end up being the first metaverse, because the metaverse that people can go in, but there's nothing really interesting to do, that's not going well. I remember being so excited when Decentraland's metaverse launched and I could go in there. And after about 30 minutes, I was like, this is so boring. So you need a game. You need a game with something to do. I mean, imagine if they took World of Warcraft, which is this game all these people play, and they put that on the blockchain. Well, that would actually be the first metaverse. If that was on the blockchain and you could freely trade the stuff to other people and capture the value you created in this world, that would be literally the first metaverse. But World of Warcraft is way behind. Blizzard isn't going that way with World of Warcraft. They're missing the boat, as big companies often do. And these new players like Cornucopias are going to come in, building hopefully what's a very interesting game that has true ownership involved, and that's what will create a metaverse. So Cornucopias, love the team. I love their transparency. They frequently, all the time, are having videos releasing where things are at. So I think their transparency on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 10. Their community is rabid for the project, which I love. And yeah, I really like what Cornucopias is doing. So amazing team. Looks like it's going to be a fun game, and you can go in there and already do so much on it. And yeah, I think the token's massively underpriced. It would get like a triple buy from me. So yeah, it's like 1, 2, 3. All right, cool. Let's see. See, Justin, I think, is right on this. Isn't the popular Pepe not even the real first appearance of Pepe? Yeah, I think there was another one. And so when you're trying to bet on meme coins in the early stage, it just realized that like 90% of them are going to pull the rug out from under you. Like the founding team is going to exit scam on you and like selling, and they'll leave rich and you'll leave with nothing. And so if you survive that, well, then the project might not do well anyway. And so it's just the numbers, and investing in early stage meme coins are terrible, terrible. You might as well take that money to the casino, put it all on black. Your odds are about 5 times better. And though you'll only double your money, at least your odds are 5 times better than betting on early stage meme coins. Right. Obviously, I love meme coins and I throw all my money at them. Just kidding. All right, Paul, any final thoughts? Oh, we got you on mute.
All right. I've done it again, haven't I? I was eating more ice cubes. As Roman was saying, yeah, it's getting hotter in the crypto space. It's definitely getting hotter in the UK too. Yeah, just some final thoughts, really. That some of the technical patterns that are usually kind of bearish or indicating a continuation of a downward trend in some of the altcoins, or some of the weaker coins, are actually sort of flipping into more bullish patterns or reversals or failures of those patterns. So I'm just going to show you this one. Like, this normally is a continuation pattern, which hasn't continued from here, and it's now starting to maybe form a base. So that's looking interesting. It's tapping on a resistance level. Something we haven't looked at in a few weeks is OMI, and I wonder whether it's starting to pull off the lows. It's still too early for me, but I'm looking at this thinking it hasn't made a new low. Some of these patterns that this normally would be bearish, it would normally indicate that this is more leaning towards the downside because that's been the trend. But I would be watching that a little bit more closely this week, whereas in the last few weeks I've just thought, no, trend is down. But here I'm thinking, I wonder if the market's going to start to notice that there are some coins that haven't moved yet. So It's just a question. I'm not saying anything about it going up. If this does go up a lot, I won't say, look, I got that right. I'd just say that it's just piqued my interest this week, given that some of the patterns that are normally bearish are turning into bullish. So if anything, it just means watch the resistance levels a bit more closely. And you can see there aren't that many picks this week, which means that people have taken their eye off the ball, which means that this is a much more important time to be watching the market.
Yeah, fully agreed. I bought more OMI yesterday, actually. I was looking at and like the price has been so disastrously low, and other things have picked up, and OMI's still cheap, and I love low. I love it. So I bought more OMI yesterday. And Friday, in our private Rainmaker chat, one of the audience members asked me about spores, and it's like, oh, do you think spores will ever recover? And I was like, I do, actually. The team is still working hard, even though the token price is absolutely devastatingly low. They're still launching tons of projects. They're just well positioned that they're making revenues of the project so that they can survive until the bull market. And when the bull market goes crazy, I think their token goes crazy. So another one that I like. So yeah, thanks for bringing those up. Those definitely have been on my mind.
No problem. And just say we'll be doing next Thursday next week, that you've finally moved the Wednesday to the Thursday. And also, Chris, thank you for your comment. Yeah, I do know you're joking about the charts, but I should actually tidy them up to a certain extent. But I do know you're joking. But thank you so much. Thanks for the picks. And as always, see you soon.
Thanks so much. And thank you to DFINITY for lending us Paul. He's absolutely amazing, and we're very blessed to have him. If you're really serious about making crypto work and you haven't joined the private Patreon group, which gives you access to the private Discord, why not? It is $20 a month. There is a cost associated with it. And part of the reason that cost is that it screens for those that are serious. And so the discussion is so much better because it's people that are serious. Second, that if you're really serious, and this isn't for people that make $10,000 a year. This is for people that make $50, $60, $70, $100,000 a year or more, is this course that I put together. And it's really my course. I call it Zero to Crypto Hero, but it's designed to shorten your span to becoming really good at this, to shorten the amount of time it takes. And it's, so instead of watching hundreds of hours of my videos, you can get a lot of this information much quicker. Here's a quick commercial on that. If you were like most of us, we came into crypto for life-changing gains, but were you aware that 89% of people do rather poorly in crypto? Only 5% achieve massive gains, and it's because they're doing things differently than most in crypto do. If you want to learn what most successful people in crypto do different, my Zero to Crypto Hero course will show you 5 massive mistakes to avoid and 3 things you need to be doing right. All right. Question from Justin says, DFINITY. I love DFINITY. I did just get a whole bunch more. Purple Llama, speaking of OMI, is it smart to sell some VV collectibles while OMI is still low and OMI is, or when OMI is higher? I think while OMI is still low. If you were to sell some of your VV collectibles through Stacker for OMI, possibly a good trade, like probably a good trade. Like the reason is because I think OMI at these prices will outperform a lot of the VV collectibles, though there will be some, and I don't know which ones those some are, that will outperform OMI. I think there's some collectibles that will absolutely go crazy in the future. It's just harder to guess which of those ones it will be. I know this all depends on the lag between OMI versus collectible price. Your thoughts? Yeah. I think OMI's been punished so severely. It's been too punished. So just like ETH was recently too punished and people just flooding out too much. And then you saw ETH all of a sudden just completely turn around. And then people are like, oh yeah, ETH's great. Like that'll happen at some point with OMI. OMI right now, the sentiment is so low. There's very few people that are like so bullish as me, and people just call me a moon boy. And they just don't understand how this works. I've been doing this for 25 years. They called me a moon boy about Cardano in the bear market of, 2019, 2020. And they just like, oh, that's unrealistic. Cardano's never going to do well. It's dead. Axie Infinity. I'd bring up Axie Infinity to people and they didn't even know what it was. So they couldn't even tell me it was dead because they didn't even know what it was. And those were some amazing performers in that bull market. I think OMI is going to be one of the amazing performers this bull market. And a lot of people just don't understand how, bear markets, things that go up really high, and OMI went up 3,000x in the previous bull run. So of course its price is going to be severely punished. It swung too high to the upside. Now it's swung too far to the downside, and that's a good thing. Most people don't understand that's just how markets often play out. So OMI is too cheap right now. VV collectibles are very cheap. Are they too cheap? Some are. Which ones are going to do amazing? I've been putting most of my money into OMI rather than the VV collectibles, though I've gotten some VV collectibles, especially the comics, because I think some of the VV collectibles will perform very, very well. I think OMI performs exceptionally well. Yes, Bunk fell off a cliff today. So we were talking about this in the private gold rainmaker chat today. Yeah, somebody dumped like $4,000 or $5,000. Somebody asked, was it me? It's like, no, at this point, like I just hold on. Like Axie Infinity was almost dead like a couple times, and it survived and made huge gains for me. Bumper, like they're still around. They're in low flow mode. They have an amazing idea. Will it work out? Yeah, you're just being patient. At this point, it's like ride it till it's dead. For me, I'm just holding on, even though I have, maybe $100,000 into Bumper, literally at higher prices than this. I would just rather keep it there. And if it dies, it dies. And if it doesn't, it will make me millions of dollars. So we'll see how Bumper plays out. I really like the team. They're smart. They're brilliant. Their idea is amazing. Their idea is transformational. I just hope they can survive long enough for their idea to catch on, because it is transformational and they've done a great job. All right, everyone. Love you all. I'm excited to see how well so many of you do this coming bull run. I know you've been taking very smart actions during the bear market. That's going to bear a lot of fruit this coming year. So many of you have struggled to be patient. That is normal. We are still humans, but there's a reason why only 5% have life-changing gains, because most people don't have the patience and they don't take the right actions. But if you're taking the right actions and you have the patience to let it play out, you're going to get rewarded really well. We'll see y'all soon.
Came into the space chasing all of the games, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit right before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road could soon become a bear market. We're learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.